All right. Hello, everyone who has signed on. Welcome to the 2018 webinar on the new PhysTech Request for Proposals. This webinar is hosted by the Physics Teacher Education Coalition, PhysTech, which is a project of the APS and the AAPT. I'm Dr. David May, the PhysTech Program Manager, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. Thanks for joining us. I would like to introduce our primary speaker for the webinar, Dr. Monica Plish. Monica is the Director of Education and Diversity at APS and the PhysTech Project Director. The way things will run today is that Monica will begin the webinar with a short presentation with slides, after which there will be a question and answer period. So you can save your questions for that, or you can also ask questions at any time during the webinar by typing them into the questions panel that's located on the side of your screen. It might be on the right or the left. It's in the GoToWebinar control panel. There's a questions box. I will review these questions even while Monica is giving her presentation as they come in, and either answer them myself or save them for the end of the presentation, or I may ask Monica to address some of them during her presentation. Just so you know, a link to a recording of today's webinar will be made available and put on the PhysTech website after today's event. And now I'm gonna shut off my own camera and hand it over to Monica to begin the presentation. So I hope you get a lot out of it. Monica?
All right, hello everybody. So let's jump right in. We'll start with a slide on just kind of the overview of what this request for proposals is all about. So we're requesting proposals for PhysTech, what we're calling comprehensive sites. And the award is up to $300,000 total over 3 years, so an average of $100,000 per year. The goal is that the PhysTech project is looking to build more thriving programs, and the goal should be for institutions to aspire to be in the 5+ club. So if you're looking to increase your number of teachers from, say, 0 to 1 per year, this may not be the right solicitation for you. We have one coming out next year that's for recruiting grants to focus on increasing numbers on a smaller scale. But so we're aiming for something really big here with comprehensive sites to produce large numbers of physics teachers per year. Each of the comprehensive sites should be prepared to address we're calling the PTEPA standards. I'll explain what that's all about. And also you should note that a teacher in residence will be required for comprehensive sites. And so this is somebody who's an expert high school teacher who can do a lot of things to help advance your physics teacher education program. Some important dates to keep in mind. We're going to have a 2-stage proposal process. And so initial proposal of 3 pages will be due on the 13th of April. Final proposal due on the 27th of July. That's right before the summer AAPT meeting. And then funding will begin in the fall of 2019 to allow time for a planning period. And if you're looking to get access to the RFP document, there's a link here. It's at phystech.org/RFP. And you can download the PDF document, and that has more details than what I'll cover in the webinar, but the webinar will cover a lot of the critical aspects. So first, just a little bit of background on a reminder on the need for high school physics teachers. I'm assuming that if you're tuned into the webinar, you're here because you already know that there's a really significant need and you're wanting to do something at your university to address this issue. And so this is looking at the fraction of high school classes taught by a teacher who has a degree in the field. And we can see that physics and chemistry are kind of both at below half of the high school classrooms are taught by a teacher who has a degree, which is, you know, an indication of the deep content knowledge, which is one of the criteria that a teacher needs to satisfy in order to be well prepared. And then here's some data you may have seen also. This is the latest data from the American Association of Employment and Education, and every so often they do a survey where they look at relative supply and demand for teaching positions. And so 5, if your field is getting to 5, that means the demand for teachers is far outstripping the supply. 3 is demand and supply are about equal, and 1 means there's considerable oversupply. And you can see that of the 59 different education fields that they survey, physics is number 3. It's only behind a couple of special education fields. And so physics is almost always at the top of the list, or it's very, very close to the top. And so that's another way of looking at need for physics teachers. So the PhysTech vision is that every student will have the opportunity to learn physics from a highly qualified teacher. So what does that mean in terms of what's the scale of the problem? If we're going to reach for that vision, what would it take to actually accomplish that? And thanks to the American Institute of Physics Statistical Research Center, we have some data on that. And they've shown that every year about 1,400 new teachers are hired to teach 1 or more sections of physics. And of those teachers, roughly 600 have some identifiable content knowledge in physics. So there's 600 with either a major or a minor in physics or physics education. And so what that indicates, the scale of the problem is roughly that collectively as a nation, we need to prepare 800 more new physics teachers per year in order to address the national shortage. And so there are different ways to approach that. One would be if every single institution every single physics department is helping to recruit and educate 1 more physics teacher per year. And that would certainly be a way to get there because there's about 750 institutions that have degree granting physics departments. But another strategy that we think is going to get us there a little faster is if we can have some institutions that are prepared to do more than that and who can educate in terms of the educating physics teachers, large numbers of physics teachers, and really contribute significantly more because there'll probably be some institutions that are not going to be engaged in this as readily for one reason or another. So this next slide here, this is Title II data that your institution is required to report to the Department of Education if you get federal funding, which is almost every single college and university gets some kind of federal funding. And what we see here, so on the bottom, the horizontal axis is the number of physics majors that were certified in a 3-year period. And actually, I should say this is physics and physics education majors. So if you're looking at this number 3, can you see my mouse here? Anyway, if you're looking at the number 3, that actually corresponds to averaging 1 physics teacher per year. And so 6 would be 2 teachers per year and so on. So of course, the most dominant feature on this histogram, the vertical axis is number of institutions that prepare that number of teachers in that 3-year period. The most dominant feature here is at 0. And you can see over 70% of all secondary education programs have not graduated, they're not active. They haven't graduated a single physics major or physics education major that was certified in that 3-year period. But the other feature here that's kind of interesting is this very long tail. And so you see there's some institutions that are very active in teacher preparation. And then if you were to add in, PhysTech also counts physics and physics education minors or equivalent coursework to a solid physics minor. So if you added in all those minors, we just don't have that data in this data set. But if you added in the minors, you would see a few more institutions. You know, kind of the histogram would you'd see a few more institutions in each of these columns here. And so we see that it is possible for programs to actually be thriving, to graduate large numbers of physics teachers, where large is, you're really doing great if you do 5 in a year, but it is possible. And we'd like to see more of those institutions so that we can do a better job of addressing this severe national shortage of qualified physics teachers. So the PhysTech program is has been around since 2001. It's a project of APS and AAPT, as David mentioned. And there are now 313 member institutions, and hopefully you're one of those members, because that's a requirement for submitting a proposal to PhysTech. And that includes 42% of all physics departments. We have members in all 50 states, plus DC and Puerto Rico. And many of these institutions, as you probably know, are not members in name only, but they've actually participated. Most of them have sent at least one faculty member to participate in a workshop or conference. And the project has supported a total of 46 institutions to build model physics teacher education programs. And these programs have substantially increased the number of qualified physics teachers. So, and we're really pleased that to report that the National Science Foundation just awarded us a new grant last summer, and so we're now in a position to offer funding to more institutions to build either thriving programs or recruiting grants. We also have some other programs, including the PhysTech Fellows Program and PhysTech regional networks. And so this third goal here, to validate a model for thriving physics teacher preparation programs, is what we're aiming for with the new comprehensive sites that we're planning to award. The goal is to see, can we push the envelope in terms of the numbers of physics teachers that can be prepared. So the comprehensive site, PhysTech comprehensive site, is not new. There have been actually a total of 25 comprehensive sites that have been funded to date. And so there's, and all of these institutions have contributed something to the comprehensive site model. They're called comprehensive sites because they're asked to implement all of the key components that are listed there on the screen. And so you can see that there's some really positive results from comprehensive sites. So the sites have nearly tripled their numbers collectively, on average, have tripled their numbers of physics teachers that they graduate when you compare the pre-award and the post-award period. They have high retention rates for their new teachers. And the median number of graduates in the post-award period is 2.5 physics teachers per year. And as I mentioned before, so what we're trying to tweak and adjust with this new RFP is to see, can we push that number a bit higher? Are there institutions that are considering how they might increase that number? And the indication that we have is that, yes, that's possible. So, you know, as I mentioned here, the median is 2.5 physics teachers per year. And there's significant variation actually among the comprehensive sites. Some are, well, since it's the median, half or lower. And, you know, half of them are higher than that. In fact, some of them are doing 4 to 5 teachers or even more. And so it you know, raises the question, what makes that difference, and how can we consistently push that number upwards? So just a little bit more about the comprehensive site model. As I mentioned earlier, the comprehensive, a key piece of the comprehensive site model are the teachers in residence. And These teachers in residence are expert high school teachers, high school physics teachers typically, and they bring the experience of the classroom and the knowledge of effective teaching practices on campus. And so the teachers in residence, as the name implies, are individuals who will be working within physics departments, sometimes in schools of education, sometimes somewhere in between. And they can help out with the physics teacher preparation program in all different sorts of roles. And so there's an article that we wrote a while back with John Anderson, who's the PhysTech TIR coordinator. And we documented all these different roles so the TIR can help with recruiting, they can advise students, oftentimes they serve as an instructor, they can help to manage a learning assistant program or TA program that's good for early teaching experiences for your future teachers. They can do mentoring and a number of other roles that are listed here. So teachers in residence are really a linchpin for these programs, and sometimes we hear from physics departments, when they start out, they're not quite sure what to do with the teacher in residence, but by the end, they say, well, we couldn't have done it without the TIR. The TIR is absolutely critical to a successful program. Also a little bit about sustainability. So there was a study that was done a few years back, and if you're interested in looking at it, you can check out, there's a copy of that available at the URL that's here on the presentation slide. And what we found is that nearly all of the comprehensive sites that were studied have sustained their programs beyond the PhysTech funding period. And in fact, that is an expectation of the solicitation, is that you will so PhysTech provides funding for the first 3 years to get things going. You get to demonstrate that it's working, and people on your campus, including administrators, see that it's successful. And then beyond that, sites are expected to sustain their program, and oftentimes that'll be built right in at the beginning. So I'll just say that in our last comprehensive site request for proposals, we've had all of the programs that have been funded have been able to have institutional commitments lined up at the beginning, where they've committed to sustain key program elements at least 3 years beyond the initial award period. And so that'll be a critical piece to demonstrate that your institution has thought about and is prepared to commit resources to sustain the program. And actually, what we've seen is that the PhysTech funding, so if you're looking at the slide here, the PhysTech funding is the bright red at the bottom, so it's about $100,000 per year. And then if you're looking at the dark blue, that's external funding that comes in that supports physics teacher education activities, whether it's in service or pre-service. And then the light blue indicates the internal funding, and oftentimes a large fraction of that will be, staff and faculty and personnel who are committed to spend some of their time on physics teacher education. What we find is that the PhysTech Award can help you leverage both internal and external resources to bring more into physics teacher education programs. So this example here from Florida International is really a program that that did exceptionally well. It not only sustained, but it actually grew its activities. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of the comprehensive site RFP. So as I mentioned before, it builds on the previous work in developing a comprehensive site model, and we're seeking to develop thriving programs. We're going to award up to 4 sites in this current RFP, and so if you, again, you can download the RFP document at the URL there. And also to support you in developing a thriving program, there's a study of thriving programs that has been largely completed, and the results of that study are also available on the PhysTech website. And so we did a study of 8 institutions, including 4 PhysTech sites and 4 non-PhysTech sites that are graduating 5 or more teachers per year. And the common practices of those programs are summarized in the Physics Teacher Education Program Analysis rubric. And so if you go to the www.phystech.org/thriving, you can download a copy of that rubric. And it's quite a long instrument. And I just want to emphasize right now is that we don't expect that every single program will adopt every single practice of all these thriving programs, but we're hoping that you'll take a look at the PTEPA and that it might give you some ideas as you're thinking about how to build a thriving program at your own institution. And that it'll give you a starting point to think about how do you respond to the RFP. And so, as I mentioned, in the RFP, you're asked to respond to each of the 6 PTEPA standards. And so we have institutional commitment, leadership and collaboration, recruitment, knowledge and skills for teaching physics, mentoring, professional support, and assessment. And so these are kind of more general categories. And in terms of how does this match up with the key components, which is the key components were used as sort of an earlier guide to comprehensive sites, you can see that there's some similarities here. So recruiting is in both of these lists. Institutional commitment, assessment are in both of these lists. We have collaboration. The champion is under leadership. And then some of these other structures, such as learning assistants and teacher in residence, these are specific programmatic structures that can help you address each of those standards. And so we encourage you to take a look at the rubric, and again, it provides, what the rubric's intended to do is to provide you a little bit more detail in terms of some of the things you might want to think about. So the list of key components is simply a word or a phrase, and the PTEPA instrument is really an attempt to give you a few more things, a little bit more details, a little bit more in depth to look at, so that you have a starting point to think about how you'd like to build your program. In addition, we're looking for innovative new ideas as well, and so it's very possible that the PTEPA is only based on 8 thriving programs, and so we expect to see that you will have maybe come up with some new ideas. As an example, recruiting didn't used to be one of our key components, and it wasn't added until later. Or, for example, this idea of learning assistants was something that was developed at University of Colorado Boulder, and it was so successful that that became part of the comprehensive site model. So we're very open to, and we hope, in fact, that you will also consider innovative new ideas that will contribute and build on this comprehensive site model. So you have to decide, kind of what are the ideas, what are the activities that will best advance physics teacher education at your institution? How do you build on what's already there, and what's going to address the needs that you have in your institutional context? So going a little bit more in depth, we see here, this is an example. This is text from the RFP. And just to give you a sense of what the RFP asks for under this, say, standard 3, which is recruitment. So I'm not going to read all of this, but you can take a look at this or read it later in the RFP. But the idea is there's a lot to address under recruitment. And so including what are the populations of students that you are going to recruit from, the students who have some physics knowledge, or you think you can attract to taking some physics courses. What are the strategies you're going to use to reach these students? How are you going to provide opportunities for early teaching experiences? And that's really important, because that can help students confirm an interest in teaching and an opportunity to experience the intellectual rewards and challenges that can come with being a teacher. And then also something that can be really important to helping with your recruitment is, how do you provide attractive program options for students to earn a physics degree and a teacher certification? And then a little a quick view on the PTEPA snapshot here on standard 3, which is recruitment. It's we have a sorry about that interruption. So if you look at the PTEPA snapshot, this gives you all kinds of detail about what types of practices Thriving programs have engaged in for with regard to recruitment. So for example, with regard to recruitment opportunities, having a large pool of physics majors, but also physics aligned majors can help. And so, for example, physics aligned majors, and that's defined too, but that can include students who are in applied or engineering physics. It could include other engineering disciplines like maybe mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. Maybe it's your math education students who you're hoping to recruit to add a physics minor. So there are lots of different ways that you can think about who you can recruit into physics teaching. Another thing to point out here is this idea of a recruitment network. And so we saw that, for example, at a lot of the Thriving programs, that there was a network of faculty, both within the physics department, but oftentimes beyond the physics department, that if they encountered a student who said anything about possibly maybe being interested in teaching, that student was referred to the physics teacher education program so that they could be advised and encouraged and supported in exploring that option. And I encourage you to take a look. There's different versions of the PTEPA. I think the PTEPA snapshot might be a good place to start. That's kind of the summary tool. And so you might want to take a look at that to get ideas for how you might respond to the RFP. And also, of course, consider innovative ideas that may not be indicated on this instrument because this is a work in progress. So once more, this is a little bit more detailed RFP timeline. And so, as I mentioned, we have a two-stage proposal process because we'd really like to encourage you to submit a proposal and try out your ideas and have like, instead of having to go through the process of writing a whole 15-page narrative proposal, we start out with 3 pages. If you look in the RFP, there are specific things that we ask you to address, specific points of information. And so I encourage you to look at that pretty carefully and make sure you're hitting all those points that we're looking for. So for example, we ask how many physics majors do you graduate per year? How many physics teachers have you been graduating? A little bit about your institutional context and the background. And then from those, we'll follow an NSF process. And so we'll have a review panel, and then that panel will make recommendations, and institutions will be selected and invited to submit a full proposal. So then the full proposal will be due on July 27th. And this will be, again, NSF style, 15-page narrative and other sections like budget, references, all that sort of thing. We may conduct virtual site visits to some of the finalists. And then awards will be announced in October 2018. So notice that funding doesn't begin until August 2019, and that's specifically to allow time for a planning period so that you can hire a TIR and find oftentimes to find the right candidate, it can take a little while, and you want to have enough time in advance to line up the right person. It gives you a little bit of time to develop your action plan more specifically, gather baseline data, and that sort of thing. The RFP document has a little bit more information, but this is just so you know that there are review criteria that are listed. So that gives you a sense of how your proposal will be evaluated. So number 1 is, of course, potential to increase your number of physics teacher graduates. 2 is addressing the PTEPA standards. 3 is developing a national model. Qualifications of your team. As I mentioned earlier, evidence of institutional support. How well have you planned to sustain the project after the 3-year award period ends? And then 6 is the extent to which your institution adds diversity. So that's along a number of different dimensions. So teacher demographics, the physics teacher workforce is, it would be good to have a more diverse teacher workforce so that it more closely matches the population of students, the physics students that are in high school. So that's a dimension. Also geography. I think if there are already a large, a significant number of institutions that are graduating lots of physics teachers in your area, you'd have to make an argument as to why your institution is also needed. And typically, oftentimes it is, but simply because the need for physics teachers is so great. And then also among different types of institutions. And so PhysTech is always looking to demonstrate successful models among different institution types so that we can hold up your institution as a model for others who may want to do something similar. In terms of considerations for potential sites, and again, this is also described in the RFP, but we ask that you consider these items here. So to carefully assess your potential to recruit more physics teachers and really think through what is your strategy and who are you going to reach out to, and what is the population of potential physics teachers. Something to keep in mind is, it's easiest to recruit the students who are already in your campus, and even easier maybe to recruit the ones who are in your department. But you want to think broadly here. You want to think about recruiting beyond the physics department. You want to think about not just like if your department has a graduate program and an undergraduate program, I would encourage you to think about how are you also reaching out to graduate students who may be thinking, gosh, this teaching sounds more interesting than completing my graduate degree, and I'd like to pursue that. What we found at many PhysTech sites is that there are, in fact, quite a few graduate students who end up getting recruited into the program because the interests change, or they realize this was their calling all along. In addition, sometimes sites will look at how do they reach out into the community through, say, maybe through a network of high school physics teachers to recruit in physics teacher candidates. Some sites are well positioned to recruit career changers into their program. So definitely you want to think through that. How, what is your strategy, and what is your potential to recruit large numbers of physics teachers? And the second bullet point, which I've already mentioned a couple times here, is what is your capability to sustain efforts after the funding ends? And I think I've said enough on that already. The third bullet point here is just to say that PhysTech has made a strategic decision to focus on pre-service teacher education. There are lots of excellent programs already that focus on in-service teacher education, including many of them that are led by AAPT. And so if you're wanting to do something that's focused primarily on in-service teacher education, this is probably not the right solicitation for you. And PhysTech is focusing on pre-service teacher education simply because there's such a big need, and we felt like nobody else was really paying attention to that issue. And then fourth, it's that we're expecting that you already have some momentum going at your institution in the direction of improving physics teacher education. And so we're expecting that you've initiated some discussions, maybe you've piloted some activities, that you already have some things going, so that really we're looking to support institutions that are poised to make a significant change. They have some momentum going, and with the PhysTech funding that will really significantly advance what can happen at that institution. It's the right timing to make a really big change, and that there are leaders in physics teacher education at the institution that are ready to make some big things happen. So we're getting towards the end here. I'll just say that I encourage you to reach out both to me and to David if you have anything you'd like to discuss about your proposal. We're very much encourage you to contact us and be in touch. We listed our phone numbers and email addresses. Either way, it's good to get in touch with us. And I'll just finish up here with this summary slide. And I'll turn it back now to David.
Right. Thank you, Monica. Now it begins our question and answer period. Some of you have already sent in a couple of questions that I've tried to answer or mentioned that I would be sending to Monica momentarily. While you think of questions to type, you can go ahead and type them, but I am going to go ahead and start with a couple of the questions that came in the control panel question box and see if Monica and I can answer them. The first one is about the TIRs, the teachers in residence, and what is considered being an expert physics teacher. What kinds of significant teaching experience do they need? Is it a certain number of years of physics teaching experience, or is there some other kind of expertise that we should look for in terms of a teacher in residence? Monica, you want to?
Sure. I mean, I'll just say in principle, we've been pretty flexible around that. I think really what you're looking for is somebody who has good energy and ideas, and they're enthusiastic about the teaching profession, because they're going to be an ambassador for physics teaching, and they're going to really be promoting that as a profession on your campus. And so it's important to get somebody who loves what they do, not that they don't see or recognize any challenges, because every job has its ups and downs, but you're really kind of looking to find an individual who's enthusiastic about the teaching profession and who has lots of energy and good ideas, and they want to see that your program is going to be successful. So I would say those are the important things. And, you know, depending on your location, if you're in a rural area, some of our comprehensive sites that are an area where there aren't as many physics teachers around, they have to be a little bit more flexible in terms of who they recruit as a TIR, because there maybe aren't as many options. And so, you know, it's going to depend on your individual circumstances, really. But I think the better position you have the teacher in residence is to mentor new teachers and to be an ambassador for the teaching profession. And the teacher in residence quite often is the person who does a lot of the legwork of the program. You know, you want to have an individual who's going to be energetic and excited about building a program, enhancing your program, and making it a success.
Okay, we have a couple more questions here. One is an easy one that I think I can answer. After submitting an initial proposal or pre-proposal, when can we expect to hear whether we're invited to submit a full proposal? And I think our current plan is to have decisions made by the end of May, and to actually let you all know by the end of May if your pre-proposal, if your initial proposal has been selected, and that you've been invited to submit a full proposal. One other question that came in is about the need for new physics teachers in the country.
Yeah, actually, David, can I just jump in and add something to the end of that last one? And so what we'll do is, if you're invited to submit a full proposal, we will provide you some feedback from the review panel on your initial proposal. And so we hope that that will offer some additional guidance. And then, as David said, yeah, with the timing, definitely by the end of May, we'll have contacted you and we'll have shared that feedback. And so, yeah, so you'll have essentially June and July to put that together.
Right. Thank you for that addition, Monica. Another question is about the teacher shortage among physics teachers in the United States. Someone asked us to direct her to data on specific regions or states that are most in need of physics teachers, because recognizing that licensure varies by state. I don't know off the top of my head if that is in the TTEP report or somewhere else.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to get data that's broken down by state. I think Susan White at the American Institute of Physics would have the most detailed data on that. I'll just say that almost every area that we've been, it's, that there's been a PhysTech site that's been funded. There is a really significant need for physics teachers in that area. So it's almost universal need. So,
Right.
like if we look at the Title II data, and we look at the numbers of physics majors and physics education majors that are certified per year across the state, it's not unusual to see numbers like 2 or 3 or 5 for the whole state. And so, that's definitely an inadequate number. So.
Okay, great. One more question came in just now. It's actually a couple of questions from someone who teaches at a private Catholic college that's a small college. One question is about the size of, but also about certification, because he writes that most of our physics majors go on to teach at private Catholic high schools without actually getting certified to teach, and they just have a bachelor's degree in physics. And because his Catholic college is able to provide those bachelor's degrees, the teachers that go on to teach at the private high schools don't need certification. So what is our requirement for the PhysTech program in terms of training teachers that may not be certified?
Right, and so I think so what PhysTech has decided is, as a project, is to take the position that in order to have a well-prepared teacher, you need to have somebody who has some physics content knowledge, and they also have to have some sort of preparation to teach, because it's not enough to, well, understanding the content is obviously really important. You also need to, there's more to be an effective teacher than just knowing the content, because you have to help other students learn the subject, and that's different than knowing it yourself. And so, but we've also left the requirements flexible, because we know that every program has a different situation. So in terms of physics content knowledge, the requirement to be a PhysTech, counted as a PhysTech graduate, is it's either a major or a minor in physics or physics education, or equivalent coursework that's, that your institution judges is equivalent to a physics minor. So that's the content side of things. And then on the on the teacher education side, it's actual certification is not really the end goal, because certification is just, it's a piece of paper you get from the state. It's more that the teacher has been prepared to teach and to help students learn physics. And so that can look different at different programs. And so basically you have to judge, is this person well prepared to teach physics? Have they been prepared in the content area? And have they been prepared to actually teach students? And so what we would say is somebody who only has that physics degree would not count as a PhysTech teacher, because they haven't had any preparation to teach. But if along the way maybe there's some courses that the student takes, or maybe they serve as a learning assistant and they get a pedagogy course there, plus they're developing their skills in the LA program, and they've gotten some other coursework that prepares them to teach the high school students. If that provides sufficient preparation to teach secondary students, then you know, in certain cases, they don't have to have certification, but you do need to be able to demonstrate that they've learned the critical things they need to learn in order to be effective in the classroom.
Great. Thank you, Monica. And the related question from that participant was about small colleges. If you could say a little more about current and future opportunities for maybe small liberal arts colleges that don't have a lot of physics majors to begin with.
Absolutely. So first of all, I'd like to just say that, you know, size isn't everything. So there's Seattle Pacific University was funded as a PhysTech site, not originally as a comprehensive site, but more as a targeted site. And they've been in the 5+ Club some years because their particular institutional mission and focus is really around service. And they have a thriving undergraduate physics program, meaning they had for their size of institution, they had quite a lot of physics majors. And so, plus they were able to attract some career changers. So, you know, I would advise everyone really to kind of think about what are the opportunities that you have to recruit teachers. The more pathways you can recruit teachers from, the more you're going to see your numbers increase. And so don't necessarily count yourself out if you're a smaller institution. But on the other hand, so there will be some other opportunities. In the next academic year, we're going to have an RFP like this one, but it's going to be for recruiting grants, and it'll be a smaller amount of money, but it'll be, again, intended for institutions that are poised to make a change. They're looking to improve their physics teacher education program, and it'll be focused primarily on enhancing recruiting activities and getting more students in the pipeline to become teachers. So that'll come out in the next academic year. It'll be a smaller amount of money, but it's designed for institutions that are looking to make some improvements, but you know, don't see themselves realistically aiming for the 5+ Club is probably not something that's, you know, within reach at that time. So.
Okay. We just got a bunch of questions come in, but if you still have a question and haven't typed it into the question box yet, please go ahead and do it. Or if you would like some follow-up or clarification from an earlier question that you've asked, please do the same. Yes, the video of this webinar will be made available, and we'll send you a link to that by email soon. Someone else asks if there's a PCK model course, pedagogical content knowledge, a model course or recommended text or curriculum that someone could look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go on the PhysTech website, we have some curriculum there, and if you're not sure, if you can't find it, please be in touch with me or David. In addition, so that some of the curriculum materials we have there were developed by Eugenia Etkina, and so she runs a really excellent physics teacher education program at Rutgers University, and she's a former teacher herself, and also now a physics education researcher. In addition, there are, if you look at what Learning Assistant programs have done, so if you go to the website for the Learning Assistant Alliance, I think it's all one word, learningassistantalliance.org, you can find lots of materials there for a pedagogy course that accompanies the Learning Assistant experience. And so just to provide a little bit of background on Learning Assistants, these are undergraduate students who serve as peer instructors, and they facilitate team learning, interactive engagement learning, typically in the introductory courses, although they can be in advanced courses as well. And so these Learning Assistants, they also concurrently take a pedagogy course where they're learning about principles like why don't you just tell the student the answer to the question when they ask? And why is it a good idea to encourage students to think about the answer for themselves and things of that nature? So there are definitely curricula out there that you can adopt either in the context of a Learning Assistant program or as a standalone physics pedagogy course. We've seen a lot of PhysTech sites that will start a physics pedagogy course in the department and then make it open to whoever's interested, because then that's a great opportunity for your physics majors or maybe your graduate students or anybody who's interested really in learning about physics teaching to come and learn something about that. And it's a kind of a low barrier to get some exposure to the scholarship of teaching and learning.
All right, thank you. Actually, those are all the questions we have. We just have a few other responses where people thanked you for the answers. Right, and Monica, I did verify that the Learning Assistant Alliance website is indeed learningassistantalliance.org. So if you didn't see that in the question box, please check that out.
Yeah, and I'd encourage you, there's a lot of information on the PhysTech website. Sometimes you have to poke around to find it, but if you go to phystech.org/institutions, you'll get a long list of all the PhysTech member institutions, but the ones that have a red square by them, those are the PhysTech supported sites. And if you click on any of those institution names, in fact, you might want to click on, if you see an institution that's, you know, similar to your institution type, you might want to click on that. And then there will be information there about what that program did and how they established, you know, what they did for recruiting or what they did for, you know, to address the pedagogy course or whatever it is that you would like to learn more about. There's lots and lots of examples. So we have the annual reports from those sites are up on the web for you to take a look at and to peruse and get ideas.
Right.
We also encourage you to reach out to the site leaders. So for each institution, there are contacts, PhysTech contacts that are listed, and they may even be people that you know or that you've run into, maybe at a PhysTech conference or in a different context. And so we encourage you to reach out to those PhysTech site leaders, and you know, we let them know that we're launching this RFP, and that in fact there may be folks reaching out to them to learn a little bit more about, well, so what did you do with your TIR, you know, in this context and that sort of thing. So so there are a lot of resources, again, because the comprehensive site model is something that's already fairly well developed. There are lots of examples for you to take a look at, and we encourage you to learn what other comprehensive sites have done, because we're expecting you to build on that and then to, you know, take the model to the next level.
While we're waiting to see if there are more questions, I thought we might address one or two of the questions that we hear when we give workshops about this, just in case these are questions that might come up for many of you as you begin to prepare your initial proposals. One of them is about the TIR, whether you can hire more than one by splitting the funding available or by hiring them part-time. Do you want to say something about that, Monica?
Sure, totally. Yeah, so let me be clear here too, is that TIRs can be either full-time or part-time. And so it really depends on what you think you can sustain with your program. So for example, Cal State Long Beach was one of our earlier comprehensive sites, and they've actually been really successful, in part because they've worked to not only to have an excellent physics teacher education program, but also they've dramatically increased their number of physics majors. They've been doing some wonderful things in their physics department there. And but they have a part-time TIR, in part because they didn't think that their institution was going to commit to sustaining a full-time TIR. And so that part-time TIR helps with teaching some of the pedagogy courses. So they have a pedagogy course for the Learning Assistant program, and then they also have an advanced pedagogy course that is for physics teacher candidates, as well as in-service teachers who are in the area. And so that's how they make the course run, is because they're able to pull in from different populations and have the course run. So full-time or part-time TIR is fine. We have had recently, we've had some comprehensive sites that for one reason or another decided to hire 2 or 3 part-time TIRs rather than 1 full-time TIR. I will say that there are advantages and disadvantages to going with either one of those models. I think with a full-time TIR, you get somebody who's able to be there all the time, and it's a little bit less work on the project management side to coordinate with that individual. With 2 or 3 TIRs who may be part-time, perhaps they're still teaching in the high school, and then they come by the university or college afterwards to do some activities. It's a little bit more work to coordinate, but then again, it makes some teachers can only participate if they're doing it part-time after school. And so if there's a particular teacher that you really want to have it be involved, or if you have different teachers have different strengths and you want to take advantage of the different strengths that they have, sometimes bringing in a couple part-time TIRs can be a way to address it. And so we can put you in touch, if you're considering that and you want to know more, we can put you in touch with other comprehensive sites that have done one model or the other model, and talk about kind of the pros and cons and how they work that out with their program.
Right. And I should say that there is, as Monica has implied and stated, there's really a broad community of PhysTech sites around that have had different levels of involvement in different aspects of physics teacher preparation. And you don't have to wait until next year's conference to learn more about it. You can get in touch with us. You can attend sessions at APS and AAPT meetings. And we can also help you, as Monica said, get in touch with those at some of the other sites that have different models. We might have time for one more quick question before we wrap up. None have come in from the participants on this webinar, but we do hear sometimes people are wondering if we would advise having a co-PI come from the College of Education or the Department of Education at your college. Monica, do you want to address that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think what we're looking to do. So one of the PTEPA standards, and I guess I can go back up to this here. One of the PTEPA standards here, it's number 2, is leadership and collaboration. So collaboration really addresses how are different units on your campus working together, namely, the physics department and either the college or school of education, to certify teachers and to prepare teachers. And so oftentimes it'll be, it'll be almost always your College of Education that's in charge of the certification program. And so how do you demonstrate that you have those good collaborative relationships between physics and education that are going to result in a seamless program and a really good experience for your physics teacher candidates? And so, and this comes into play with developing a streamlined pathway so that students don't encounter barriers where they have to jump through too many hoops just to get out with their degree and certification or completion of their teacher education program. And so demonstrating that you have a strong partner in education is going to be really important. We do expect the leadership to come. The PI should be in the physics department because that's most aligned with the PhysTech approach, because we see oftentimes that it's really the physics department where there's a lot of changes can be made to improve teacher education. But you also want to demonstrate that you have that strong relationship with your partners in education. So having a co-PI in education can be a good way to demonstrate that, and also demonstrate some buy-in and some leadership from the education side of things. But it's not absolutely required. So however you choose to demonstrate that and make the case that there is a good working relationship between physics and education, ultimately that's what's important.
Okay, one quick question came in at the very last minute. Does the PI have to be on tenure track in the physics department?
So we do definitely strongly recommend that the PI is tenure track. The reason for that is because, but I'll just say that hasn't always been the case. So don't rule yourself out on that basis. Let me explain the thinking behind that is you need to have a leadership team that is going to be well positioned to make changes, to advocate for resources, to persuade maybe other physics faculty members or the chair or the dean that this program is a good idea, to advocate for policy changes and that sort of thing. And so what you need to do is you need to think about how those individuals on your leadership team are positioned to make change happen. So usually that can be, you're in a better position to do that if you're tenure track or ideally tenured faculty member. But like I said, there have been some exceptions. And so if you can demonstrate that on your leadership team, there are, let's say, like, for example, that I want to submit a proposal and I'm not a tenure track faculty member, but I have a senior member of the physics department who's a really strong advocate, and they're going to come in and they're going to help advocate for the policy changes and the resources that need to come into play. Then yes, absolutely, that can work. But you need to have that member on your team, somebody who's committed to the project and who can bring your colleagues along and that sort of thing. So we do have a couple examples. So for example, University of Missouri in Columbia, Karen King is a non-tenure track faculty member. She's doing an excellent job leading the program, but she has other people on the leadership team who can help bring the physics department along and that sort of thing. Also, Boston University is another example where Andrew Duffy, who's the site leader there, is really the person who's leading the program. And then there's another faculty member, Bennett Goldberg, who's also serving in a champion role to make things happen.
We are about out of time, but there was one more question that I'm hoping you can answer real quick, Monica. Can proposals be collaborations from multiple institutions?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We definitely welcome collaborative proposals. In fact, in the last round, we funded one that was from Colorado School of Mines, where they had a lot of physics and engineering students, but no certification program. And then also University of Northern Colorado, which has a reputation in teacher education. And so those two institutions teamed up to create a pathway for the Mines students to graduate with certification in 4 years. And we thought that was really innovative. And so yes, absolutely, collaborative institutions are welcome. I would say that you would want to, if it's a multi-institution proposal, then you want to think and document how it is that those institutions are going to work together, because it is a little bit more complicated when you're working with multiple institutions as opposed to one institution. And so having an articulated strategy for how you're going to manage those interactions would be a good thing to put in the proposal.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, those are all the questions that we have right now, but I'm sure you'll have more as you begin to work on your proposals if you decide to work on them. So we do welcome you and encourage you to follow up either with me or with Monica as you're putting together your initial proposal. As I said before, you'll receive an email containing a link to the recording of today's presentation and a PDF of the presentation slides. So thank you very much for joining and participating, and good luck to you, and have a great day.
Yep, and definitely be in touch. We welcome that.
All right, thanks. Goodbye, everyone.